So, Sifa.id is a sort of next gen competitor to LinkedIn, which is great because LinkedIn is terrible. And what it does is it puts all the data on @protocol. So you can use your handle, the same identity as your Blue Sky account, on Sifa.id. And one of the things that's pretty cool that the guy did was had it highlight all your talks. So if you give talks, like I've given talks, you can upload like a CSV and it'll transform those into records. And those will show up on your profile on Sifa. And I was like, well, that's cool. I have, talks. And not only do I have talks, they're all on YouTube. And so why don't I just, knock out like a little API client thingy and just punt them out, turn them into the CSV, and then I can upload it rather than having to transcribe it by hand. And then, of course, having to maintain that transcription. I can just have that as a pipeline that lives forever. The thing about that, though, is as these tasks all are, it's an ETL task. And so I have to pull out the data that matches the data or is close enough to matching the data of the API response from YouTube and then turn it eventually, maybe through some other representation, turn it into these CSV records. And it's okay, that's fine. But it's like a chore. And it's okay, fine. Get the robot to do it. Get freaking Claude to do it. And I did for the client part, because the funny thing about these little API client scripts is that the amount of stuff that's just log in and get the stuff, and then there's quota management, and there's just all of this bookkeeping and crap that is involved in just some dumb little command line script to make API calls, and it's yeah, I don't want to do that, so get the robot to do that. That's fine. But now I'm at the T part of ETL, and ETL is extract, transform, load, right? It's exactly what it says on the tin. You extract the data from some system, you transform it into the format that the receiving system needs, and then you load that data into the receiving system. The fun part, so the E part is annoying when it's an API client, but it's the transformation part that is the part that kind of requires the artistry. You could try to get the robot to do it, but this is the thing about what I am finding about just AI coding in general is that so when it's boilerplate, log into API and make calls, it can do that in one shot. But what I want to be able to do is I want to be able to transform those, and I want to be able to look at the results of those transformations. And that's, like I said, that's sort of where the artistry is. Because it has to be correct. And what I'm finding is that these AI bots are you just can't really trust them when what you need is correctness, because they'll just do a dumb thing. You have to at least check it. When you're at least checking it, and if you're trying to do rounds with this thing, you get to the point where you could have just done it yourself. And, again, once the boilerplate is out of the way and the actual task of doing the real work is in front of you, then I think that's kind of where they break down. The effort that it takes to explain what you want to the thing exceeds the effort that it takes just to describe it to the computer, the actual computer executing the code yourself. So I guess I've just had ETL on the brain for a while, because I would say I'm about 100 hours away to finally having an actual release candidate for Intertwingler. Now, the idea behind Intertwingler is basically I'm going to take data and I'm going to turn it into web pages, with the option to turn it into JSON, so that it is dirt easy to make hypermedia presentations, for lack of a better term. And the problem that it's really attacking is the fact that when you're doing that, you get bogged down by like build a website, which, you know, is just like when you're trying to do something with data and you're trying to do something creative, like any, you know, ask any sort of like data scientist or data journalist or whatever, and they'll tell you is that, like, you know, getting the data is 80% of the job, and getting the data and transforming it into the format that you need to do what you're doing, do your job, is ETL. That's what it is. And that got me sort of thinking furthermore about what I have experienced as a consultant and as a, like, you know, a person who's done like information architecture, content strategy, you know, interaction design, whatever, is that the artifacts that you create during that process contain information that basically require ETL to be operationalized, and furthermore, they may not even be in the shape that is needed to do that. And then again, like, just, okay, you think about it, right? Like, and I mean, I know a lot of consultants who like don't produce artifacts at all, right? Like they're like just like a guy you talk to kind of a thing. So they're fine. But like, to the extent that you're like working, like, you know, you're doing like design stuff for, you know, a company, and you're like producing like a nav, for example. And I mean, I've talked about this, like I did a talk last year about how information architecture in particular could actually sort of break off of UX and turn into its own thing, where it's more coupled to devs and their budget comes out of engineering rather than design. But the condition on doing that, I think, would be having the artifacts that they produce like directly consumable by the developers. And the problem with that is like a spreadsheet just can't handle it. And like, my disposition towards spreadsheets, you know, is fairly well known at this point. I think that they are incredibly limited and limiting, and I think that rather than trying to shoehorn our practice into spreadsheets, like being able to produce artifacts effectively that can be consumed directly by developers and subsequently their computers, right? Like, ETL sucks is the basic message. Like, if you have to spend the effort to consume the designer's output, and this is the argument that I made in the talk, if you have to spend that extra effort to consume their output, what ends up happening is that you'll do that once, and then if there's a delta to that, if that gets updated, you're like I, you know, don't want to spend the effort to do it again. Now, those dynamics might change with AI. I don't know. That's an empirical question that's going to bear out over the next few years. But I do know for sure that, you know, as a designer, as a strategist, as a, you know, like as a consultant, that makes artifacts. I think that a lot of the artifacts that we make are underpowered. You know, we'll make a PDF document that goes in somebody's email, and they, you know, that's it. Like, to the extent that the strategy or whatever it is you're delivering can be actioned by the client, it highly contingent on like how much work they have to do to actually do that. And so it's been a sort of I don't want to say obsession, but it's been a keen interest of mine over the last several years to be able to create deliverables for clients that actually, you know, making just generally more powerful deliverables for clients as a consultant, a researcher, a strategist, whatever. And, you know, InterTwingler as a application server slash, you know, static site generator, what have you, is the piece of infrastructure tool that finally makes that possible. Anyway, ETL sucks, and I'm going to finish my coffee.